Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Will, that's Blake, and today we're talking a little D&D B&B, our Critical Role. Is it? Did I do it in the wrong order?
B&B with F.C.G. talking D&D.
That's right.
For
there
CR.
we go.
How long you think this acronym thing is going to last for us before?
I think we can keep it going a while, knowing us.
We're going to milk this. Yeah.
And we're going to add more acronyms as we go along too.
People that just are like, please stop. So,
but yeah, we back. We're here to talk some CR. And actually, it's kind of fun because it's Tuesday, but Blake just finished the episode, so we're coming in like he's got the immediate reaction. I've been sitting on it for a while.
Yes, Will got the play-by-play of my text messages and all ranges of emotions.
Yep, so. It was fun to watch you go through that. So yeah, but before we dive into that, real quick, normal spiel. Join our Discord. It's linked down in the description below, where you can freak out with us in real time. Or in delayed time if you're not watching live, because it's been kind of fun. Because with you, obviously, like we just talked about, but there's been a few people throughout the week that are like, I'm just now watching the episode, and just to watch them freak out as well. So you could join us in that. We got Sunday watch parties in addition to our Critical Role live watch parties, and it's just a fun place to hang out. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about maybe some D&D campaigns coming together. I can't speak too much more to it because it's all you guys, members of the community, that are talking about potentially getting it together. So that would be really fun if that starts coming together.
We've had people in our discussions or Discord who've talked about how much they enjoy Critical Role, but they don't have an actual group that they're with.
Yeah.
And if you guys, want to play with someone who, get your hopes up, but then
where are you going with this?
End up not wanting to play.
Whoa, listen.
My illustrious co-host.
You want to air out our dirty laundry right now, huh? Listen, there's two sides to every story. That's not how I see it. But,
the direct invite and then being declined. Sure.
Okay, maybe another time, another place. But two sides to every story, y'all. Just remember that. But yeah, I think if our Discord, our community became a place where people got to get some games together, whether it's your first time or not, I think that would be awesome. So I've mentioned it. I'll probably dive further into this as it develops, but talking about making some new channels, specifically for finding a group, or, if campaigns get going, for specific channels for those campaigns. So there'd be nice and tidy places to do that type of thing. So I just add it to the list of many reasons you guys should be joining the Discord. So like I said, the link will be down below. Other than that, we just wrapped up our Loki series that just had its finale. Blake and I both loved it. So if you were watching that, check that out. And if you weren't watching it, watch it, because it was really good.
Did you ever finish Witcher season 3, by the way?
No, I still haven't started it. But okay. I won't get into the whole spiel again, but we kind of had a tradition last year of watching it around Christmas time. So we're just saving it to do that again.
Okay.
Since it's the send off,
Yeah.
But yeah, and then only other thing is Worlds Beyond Number recently just started its second chapter. You guys are probably tired of us saying this at this point, but I know there's a lot of you CR people that have not checked it out yet, and you need to, because it's really good. And I mean, what else can I say? You should check it out. But yeah, we'll be putting out our episode on that latest episode maybe tomorrow or soon, in any case. But yeah, anything else?
I don't think so.
Alrighty. Well, in that case, let's just go ahead and get going, I guess. And to kick things off, like we always do, we will be recapping the episode. And if you find yourself on that recap, because we cut it out and host it separately for your viewing convenience, and you would like to see our full discussion, I'm sure this one will be fun. It'll be linked down in the description as well. So yeah, my friend, if you would like to kick us off this week.
This freaking episode, man. Episode 77 of Campaign 3, The Promise and the Price. This episode opens up with it's a late evening at Whitestone at the Whitestone Castle, and Laudna is really wanting to find out more about her background and specifically her connection to Delilah. So essentially, her, Imogen, and Fern go on a little girls' trip through the hallways of Whitestone, and along the way, it's late at night. Matt is having her. It wasn't a history check. I think it was wisdom checks to see how well she could recollect things. And as she's rolling, she's getting flashes of like different hallways she's been down before, kind of remembering this previous life when she was still alive before her tragic end due to Delilah. Finally, they make their way to this locked door and they're unable to open it. Imogen has this very clever idea of peeking through the keyhole where she summons a Ray Lauren on the other side, this construct of incredible power who asks, "What is it you command of me?" And she's like, "Can you open the door?" And it's just this funny moment of, sure. So the door opens up. They step into what appears to be, and help me if I misinterpreted this, it seems to be maybe the old living quarters of Percy DeRollo's parents, or like a family member of the DeRollo house.
Yeah, I think it might have even been his childhood room.
Okay. In this room, there is a number of things, most notably a bookshelf, which Laudna sort of instinctively walks over to and pulls a less dusty tome to reveal a hidden hallway behind the bookcase. However, the hallway has been boarded up, so to speak. It's been bricked up, I guess. With a sign that reads, basically, "You're very clever, but go apologize to your mother," which seems to be a note that Percy has left for, I guess, Gwendolyn DeRollo. I don't remember how they got through the stone.
I think Fern stone-shaped.
Yeah. They make their way through it into this hidden chamber that appears to be a laboratory of some sort. And as they're inspecting things, 3 specters come out from the walls and immediately recognize Laudna. Initiative is rolled, and this encounter begins against these 3 ghosts of Whitestone. Not much to say here. We typically cover just the high points from combat. I will say that they are locked in on Laudna throughout this combat, ignoring Fern and Imogen. But the party basically fights the ghost, defeats the ghost, but not before Laudna, interestingly enough, really embraces it. Feels like they think that she is Delilah, and so she full on embraces it and locks into that deep power of Delilah as they absolutely obliterate these ghosts. As combat ends, they are then find themselves in a conversation with Delilah Briarwood. All of them can hear her, and Delilah does confirm their suspicions that these were 3 servants of Whitestone who Delilah presumably did experiments of her own against. And basically, there's a conversation between Laudna and Delilah on, like, really Laudna asking, like, what am I? Like, what is our relationship? Like, what's happening? And Delilah basically explains that Laudna is her tether to this world. And similarly, Delilah is Laudna's tether, in that Laudna has basically died, and yet she remains because of Delilah's connection to this world. Delilah also mentions that the Whispered One has been biding his time, that Delilah is working on his behalf to make sure that the gods, most notably him, doesn't go away. And basically even promises Laudna that there could be, they can talk after all this is said and done. They can maybe talk about separating Laudna and Delilah. But first, Delilah is going to need much more power. And Laudna remembers the moment on the ship many episodes ago where she broke and consumed the power of the Gnarl Rock stone. Delilah seems to disappear, and Laudna basically turns to Imogen and just says, hey, it's honestly like your classic movie, like, you know, hey, if something happens, like, leave me. And Laudna says, I'm dead weight, like literally, I'm dead weight. And I need you to promise me that if something happens, you'll move on with your life. Imogen rebuffs that and basically says, no way, we will find an answer for you. I don't care what Delilah says. I don't care who the Whispered One is. We got a great line from Laura Bailey about him being slithering around in the shadows and being weak. But they make a promise to one another to find an answer, and they basically head back to their quarters to go to sleep for the night. And that's when we go to break.
Yes, sir. So we pick up in the second half. Everyone basically having taken their long rest for the night, and the next morning, they're in, I think, 3 different rooms. So the next morning in Orem and Fern's room, they have a bit of a conversation in the morning. Fern starts to tell Orem what happened the night before, but then she's like, well, the whole group will talk about it later. But Orem wants to talk to her and just says that how much he loves her, basically saying how lucky he is to have found her, and how he loves to see her really coming into her own and blossoming. And he kind of puts the cherry on top of this moment by giving her a gift, and he gives her the spyglass that he stole from the Ghost Pirates a few episodes ago. So a really sweet moment. Then everybody else, they all convene back together in the morning, and our 3 lovely lady witches basically fill in the rest of the party on their adventure from the night before. They then decide, like, hey, you know, we're about to go on this crazy mission. Like, this might be our last day of just kind of normalcy. Like, let's do something fun. And they're like, well, we should go like sledding or something here in Whitestone because there's snow. So they're like, yeah, okay, well, let's go sledding. But before they do, F.C.G's like, hey, wait, like, I know why some of us are doing this, but like, I don't know why some others of us are. Like, some of us has really good reasons to go save the gods, but for the rest of you, like, why are you doing this? And he specifically calls out Chetney. And Chet says that he wants to do it just because, like, he's getting old, and this is his opportunity for him to really make a difference in the world and leave a legacy and have people remember his name. And that answer is good enough for F.C.G. And then he asks Orem the same question, basically. He's like, you know, why are you doing this? And Orem's like, well, you know, it started with my husband and my father, but now it's just so much bigger than that. If my sacrifice can save all the lives after, then it's worth it. And, you know, so that's why I'm doing it. And that, you know, is good enough for F.C.G. as well. And F.C.G. kind of similarly has, you know, the same kind of struggle they've been having the whole time. Like, are they worth it? And this kind of culminates in, again, the witches giving F.C.G. a gift that they had, which is a wok that they got. And they're like, it matches your color scheme. You can use it to cook. And they're like, okay. They also decide they're going to use it for sledding. So the gang then goes outside to sled. There's a fun little sequence, and essentially Ashton and F.C.G. use the wok to sled, and Chetney and Orem use a sled that Chetney, like, I think carves out of wood really quick earlier. And so they have a quick little, you know, I think it's like an athletics roll or something. And essentially Ashton and F.C.G. bite it completely and end up into the snow, whereas Chetney and Orem just go perfectly down the jumps and have a perfect time. So they do this, and then there's still a few hours before they're going to be meeting up with, like, the leadership of Whitestone to talk plans. So there's a little segment here where a few characters do their own thing. First and foremost, Imogen goes to a temple of the Dawnfather, but she's never done this before, so she doesn't really know what to do. So she asks an older lady there about, like, how do I pray? And, you know, she gets some kind of simple instructions and just, you know, speak from the heart type of thing. So she walks up to a nearby altar, takes out her Whitestone is for Lovers t-shirt, because that's like the only thing she can even think of as like a kind of offering to, like, pray with. And she basically just says that, like, hey, Dawnfather, I hope you know, like, we're trying to fix things for you and the gods, and if we're able to, and if everything goes right, I hope that you can maybe help me in return, because she wants help with Laudna. She says, I don't want to make like any deals, but I just sure could use some help with what's going on with her. She says, thank you. She doesn't get like a direct response or anything. So she just says, thank you, and walks out. And as she's leaving, she kind of notices in the courtyard nearby, her attention is just drawn to a statue of the champion of the Matron of Raisins. Just this, feathered humanoid figure, and she can hear like a raven caw nearby. We then cut to Orem, who is going shopping. So he heads to Gilmore's Glorious Goods, runs into Jerry, who is opening the shop. And Jerry's like, hey, stock's pretty bare. Everything's being like conscripted for the war effort. And Orm's like, I just need some healing potions. And it's like, yep, we got some. So he buys 3 for 150 gold. And then Liam's like, can I just look to see if there's anything else here? And so he actually rolls a nat 20 on his perception check. And because of that, he finds like this vial that had like slipped through the cracks. And Jerry tells him like, oh yeah, we thought that was stolen. Like we marked that as, lost because of that. So here's the deal. I'll give it to you for 200 gold. And Orem's like, how about 199? Thinking like he's being slick haggling. Jerry's like, yep, sold. And it ends up being a potion of heroism. So after that, Orem goes to the Slayer's Cake to pick up a bunch of pastries. Basically orders a ton and gives them an electrum piece, and it's going to be delivered to the meeting later.
Hang on, I think he orders 50 pies to be delivered in 2 hours, which, excuse me, what?
He's got no consideration for the bakery's normal orders.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. He bought a ton of stuff, but specifically a whole apple pie just for himself.
Yes.
So we then cut to Ashton and Fern, who are kind of going on a little walk together to speak privately, and they actually go to the clock tower, Percy's clock tower. And they talk about just, how they're going on this crazy mission. And Ashton says, if something were to go wrong, your Nana Maury would miss you so much, but if something were to happen to me, there's no one to miss me. And Fern's like, what are you talking about? And Ashton's like, well, other than you guys, he's like, I'm saying aside from our group here, if something were to happen to me, there's no one to miss me like there is for you. So they start talking about the primordial shard again. And the two are kind of even being a little flirty during this whole discussion. And Ashton says, hey, I trust you. Can you help me with this? Because Fern wants the shard to go to Ashton if Ashton wants it. And Ashton does want it. But he says, the others probably won't like this idea because we know it's dangerous. So will you help me? And if things go bad, try to help me if that happens too. And he's like, I trust you. And I trust that you'll do what needs to be done more than everyone else. And Fern's like, okay, I don't really know fully what you're asking of me, but like, I'll help you. So the party then reconvenes. It's time for the leadership meeting. Lady Cassandra de Rollo, Percy's sister, is now here. The baked goods are here. And Percy and Allura and Bell's Hells make up the whole group. So Percy's like, hey, couple of options here. We're basically going to make a distraction so that you guys can get to the Bloody Bridge and get up to the moon unnoticed. We got a stockpile of residuum, and we've got some complex machines, both of which aren't really widely understood outside of Whitestone, so we can probably make a good distraction here. So the first thing he offers up are these devices that will let them control or hack, really, an Aormaton and just kind of cause some ruckus as a distraction. So F.C.G. takes those, and there is a timer you can set, or you can press it and have it go off instantly. They also think that an onslaught of illusions could be a good distraction, and Allura will be the one to helm up that. And they're going to pair these illusions with like this cart, this wagon of like meat, so that like if the illusions are attacked, there will be like flesh and blood to help it sell it. So in addition to those plans, Allura also gives them 2 scrolls that will protect them from scrying. She gives them a scroll of greater restoration to use on Rin if they find her, and a scroll of Dimension Door. She also gives them a potion of speed and 2 potions of gaseous form. And finally, Percy gives F.C.G. the custom jeweled baking tin that they requested. So the plan is sneak in, recon, sneak back out. And they're basically, everyone is like, we're just ready to go as soon as you guys say you're ready. And they're like, okay, well, the only thing we really need to do is this primordial shard. So they're like, where should we go that would be safe if we're going to try this? And so Percy and Cassandra opt to take them down to the ziggurat beneath Whitestone, which is this massive pyramid.
Nothing bad's ever happened here.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah. And there's this massive pyramid with like this kind of green arcane light. They're going to do it here. So Chet gives the harness to Ashton and Fern, who are going to kind of go up away from everybody else, just as a safety precaution. And Fern's like, I don't think I really want the shard. And Laudna is like, no, like you have to take it. Like you're the only one that can take it. And so Ashton's like, yeah, Fern's going to take it, but we're going to go over here to be safe.
Yeah.
So they kind of ascend up this pyramid a little ways, just out of view. And Allura casts this like protective shell around just in case, or she's like prepared to do that. So Ashton and Fern get up there. Ashton's like, hey, thanks for helping me out. Like, let's just get this over with ASAP. But Fern's like, I don't know about this. And she's worried. And she's like, you just better not die. So she grabs the shard out of the bag and starts taking fire damage as soon as she touches it, and basically holds it in front of Ashton, who is now wearing the harness. And so the shard begins to be absorbed by this harness, and a gauntlet begins. And for the sake of brevity, I'm going to run through this, but essentially what the deal is here is for 10 rounds, aka a minute, Ashton has to survive as the process of absorbing this shard takes place. And that happens in the way of Constitution saving throws for 10 rounds, while also taking tons of fire damage. And essentially we find out that a failed Constitution throw means you die. So
no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Because as Matt warned them multiple times, one person was not meant to contain 2 shards.
We'll talk about that.
And this is the fallout of that. So as this is going on, Ashton literally starts to crumble to pieces, taking tons of fire damage. Their arm literally falls off at one point. And Fern is just pumping as much healing as she can, but quickly the party can tell something is not going right up there. So ultimately the party all kind of rush up there. F.C.G is pumping as much healing as possible into Ashton. And basically every round Ashton falls unconscious from the fire damage, but is able to get like immediately put back up between the 2 heals of Fern and F.C.G. Ashton does fail the con save though, and just is obliterated into a million pieces, but the pieces hang in the air and reform together, because Ashton was saved by the Ring of Temporal Salvation that the party got from Deanna. So this continues on until we get to the 10th and final round, where Ashton successfully makes the final DC and the process is complete. And the whole place is just filled with like this crazy steam. And as it dissipates, there is Ashton now, where their arm was previously gone, is now like this muscular, like magma lava arm. And instead of like the golden veins that used to be there, they're now like glowing volcanic orange veins. And Ashton thanks Fern for trusting them, and she just runs up and kicks him straight in the face and says like, I'm never listening to you again. And the whole table is just kind of like freaking out. And that is where the episode ends. Again, episode 77. And if you're watching just the recap, our link to our full discussion will be linked down below in the description.
Man.
So bro, you're literally coming in hot, no pun intended, because you just watched this. So I know your emotions are still in fight or flight probably from that last sequence.
The desk went to standing mode as I literally was like, like freaking out. At one point I was like, God, please. And then I was like, God doesn't care about this stupid show. But I was like, please. Because if you've followed us long term, you guys know, I know we always like to joke about Blake loves so many different characters, but I have Stan Ashton as my all-time fave for a long time now.
Have you?
And if I will kill you. And if he dies, if he had died, I was done. I was like, I'm done. You'll have to get Jeremy in here. The lower guest, bring in Jeremy, That it was nuts, man.
It was intense.
it was emotionally exhausting. And there was a point where I was like, okay, because I did the time wrong. I was thinking that a round was 10 seconds. So like it was around round 5 where I was like, okay, he's gonna be okay.
They're almost done.
Yeah, and then Matt or someone goes, there's 5 more rounds of this. And that's when I was like, he's screwed. Like we're done. And then I think it was the 8th round where he's successful, where I was like, it was like, okay, 2 more rounds. But I thought that the 8th round was the 2 more rounds. So I was like, okay, just 1 more. But then it was like, no, there's still 2 more. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude. And especially, I mean, the chances of he had to beat the DC 11 and then he had to beat the 15 for the last 2 rolls.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the odds are on that, but 10 straight rounds, surviving through Death Ward, the Ring of Temporal, what was it?
Salvation.
I mean, bro, crazy episode. There's a lot to talk about. So what was your reaction when you got to see it?
I mean, it was real stressful. So I was watching it Thursday night, with some of the peeps in the Discord. Everyone was just freaking out. I think a couple people had to like step away.
Yeah, it was crazy stressful.
It was stressful, man. But I loved it. I mean, I was obviously very stressed and worried. But I thought it was awesome. Like, that's kind of not that like that's the goal of any entertainment or drama is to like make your heart pound and freak out. But like at the end of it, especially since things, ended up okay. But even if they hadn't, that's kind of what we're here for. It's this like the intense, dramatic storytelling moments.
Honestly, if you think about it too, it was one of the most dramatic moments in the campaign thus far. In fact, I would say the only other episode that, I mean, there's been a lot of great moments, but like in terms of like peak stress was episode 51 with
is that when everybody died?
Yeah, What Dreams May Come, I think was the episode name. And yeah, when Laudna, the episode opened up, we ended the previous episode with the death saves, and we had to start with the death saves in that episode. And she failed. I mean, I almost said spoiler, then I was like, wait, if you're watching this, you clearly saw it. So incredibly intense.
Yeah.
An amazing episode.
I don't think you did based on, like you said, we were texting a little bit and now we're talking, but I was wondering if you were going to be able to resist like looking up the spoilers.
I was very tempted. Yeah. I mean, I had seen a couple of, I think you had told me not to or something, so I made sure not to.
Yeah.
You're helping an addict out, but I had seen a couple of threads that were very generic. Like I think one was like, it said like the best moment of the campaign so far or something. And I was like, oh, what was that? I just have to know. And then the other thing was, it was very generic also, but it was something like that moment with Ashton or something like that. So I was very tempted for both.
Yeah.
But I resisted.
Well, nice.
So, and there's been a lot of content, like other than CR, there's been a lot of content for us these last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot to like fill, my attention with anyway. But yeah, I mean, crazy. Let's maybe start there, I guess, since it's obviously like the, peak part of the episode.
Yeah, well, I do want to start there, but before you do, just because I want to get this out of the way, I'm guessing you probably haven't, because like we just talked about, you were avoiding spoilers and you just finished the episode, but have you seen any of the reaction to the episode?
I haven't, because I finished the episode and immediately we jumped on this call.
I don't know if did you see like my little video? I would hope that you wouldn't have watched it because it would have been like spoilers. But like,
I saw you post something, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, so
I didn't remember what the title was either. But I hope the reaction was positive. I mean, was there negativity about it?
Well, yes, a lot.
Really?
Are you kidding me? The little parasocial demons that are out there. We've talked about like the toxic subsection of the fan base. But
I would think everyone, this is like peak CR. Like I would think everyone would. I mean, what do I know?
Well,
Just some random dude. But okay, I didn't know that.
People were mad at Matt, Taliesin, and Ashley for their decisions, and like they're like, I mean, it's I don't want to. It's the vocal minority, but
I could understand frustration at Matt. Because you heard me when we jumped on the call. I was like, Matt Mercer, man.
I can understand
not like in a negative way.
Yeah, I can understand like lighthearted, like, oh Matt, like don't kill Ashton,
Yeah.
but like, people out there actually being mad, being like, I can't believe Matt would do this, or like Taliesin, I can't believe he would make that decision, or I can't believe Ashley would go through with that. Like, just the dumbest takes, man. Launching like actual like hate at the cast for these things.
I think my only criticism is, would I have done it that way? No. Do I run a multi-million-dollar D&D production? No. Does it really matter what I think? Not really. So like I think ultimately it's a matter of opinion. Like objectively, and maybe this isn't objective. I feel like it is. Objectively, there was nothing done wrong in that episode from any party's perspective.
Right.
So and honestly, we're obviously biased a little bit because we've had this conversation before. Like that is the wonder of D&D, is that like there's so much you can do with it. That's the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm surprised that there was so much negativity,
and just to be clear, like I'm not talking about people that just like, had a difference of opinion on things, but I'm talking about the people that are like literally like launching vitriol because like, the dumbest reasons. And there's like no delineation drawn between the character and the actor. Like people are launching hate at like at Taliesin or at Matt. And it's just like like, so you can not that you need to watch it, but I was exhausted by it. So I put out a little video calling them to tell them to go get a life.
I know how you deal with trolls. Hopefully you were.
It was about the same time that one comment sent me over the edge.
Honestly, it gives me vibes of the end of Calamity when Chetney. Oh my gosh, what's Travis's character's name?
Sarah
Grumpnin gets to do his redo like his magic hunter or whatever it was called ability.
Yeah.
And there were people losing it in chat when it was live. This is like unequivocally the best piece of content that's ever come out from like a D&D perspective. And there were people losing their minds being rules lawyers. So I guess in a way it doesn't really surprise me that people would be doing the same thing again.
Yeah, it's just annoying. And I don't want to spend too much time on the negativity, but like, because it was such a good episode. Like, again, it was stressful. Like we were worried, but like it was so good.
And every player, we keep saying this, man, every player had a freaking amazing time. Like, there was a moment where I was watching Laudna, but Marisha Ray had her Laudna plushie that she was holding, and she was in the different forms of Marisha Ray, but she was in sit up on the chair seat mode.
Yeah, Sam Riegel even got like it's like on the table at one point.
Yeah, and then Ashley Johnson had like sunk down into her chair, like gripping her. I'm like, isn't this what you want from your players? Like, I mean, that level of engagements. As opposed to we've all been in like that D&D sesh where like someone's just casually just like, flipping, what? Oh yeah, I'll do that, I guess.
Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast.
We're not in combat, man.
Yeah. You had a shopkeeper, man. Yeah, I'll kill him anyway. Sure. Anyway, so I do have some like D&D high level criticism isn't really the right word, but ways that I kind of my perspective we can talk about at some point. But other than that, I mean, you guys go outside if you're that upset.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, again, that being said, that doesn't mean that people can't have normal level-headed, opinions about things. You and I are about to get into that right now. So, so yeah, just to those people, get a life. But let's
just keep the conversation going since we're already on this. like I think having a legitimate criticism is fine. Attacking someone's like character or who they are as a person is just wild to me. But I think from Matt's perspective, which he said it a few times, like, hey, I made it very clear. That you should not do this. I mean, he did, but also you have Fern.
Well, yeah,
saying,
go ahead.
You have Fern saying like, I don't want it. You take it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I would totally understand my players going. I understand Taliesin going the route that he did. And then also Brennan Lee Mulligan had an awesome quote. It was kind of tangentially related to this kind of conversation on how do you punish players for when they don't pick up signals.
Mm-hmm.
And Brennan Lee Mulligan had an amazing insight where he basically, and this is not between him and Matt, I just mean in general, when your players are in these kinds of situations, he said, I think I want my players to take risks and to be risky, and to engage with that, because if you're always looking to punish someone for doing the risky move, you'll wonder why the plot's not moving forward. And again, that's not a criticism that Matt or anything, but for me, I understand why Ashton did it. He has Fern, which, by the way, they're having their own moment all of a sudden. It's like, wait, are we shipping this? Is this happening? They're having their own moment with Fern being like, you do it, you take it. So I totally understand how we got to where we did.
Yeah. Me too.
I feel like Matt was too harsh, but then again, it all worked out and Ashton's alive. So
I don't think he was harsh enough, to be honest.
Are you kidding me?
A DC of 10 for like half the thing? That's like DC so
11,
easy.
DC 11.
okay, but that's like so easy unless you roll real bad.
DC 11 or you instantly die.
Well, right. But like, again,
like you take some DC 11 or you're dead.
Right.
It's like a 3-roll third death saving roll.
Right.
I mean,
it was intense, but we're talking about the literal primordial shard, and he already has one. Yvonne Trevere said, it'll shatter the vessel if you try to do more. He should have been
more explicit.
Matt?
Yvonne Trevere's both. Yvonne Trevere's like specter form should have like popped up and been like, bro, I'm just telling you, man, so you will die. So
I feel like everyone was well suited for what they did. Like, I totally understand Ashton wanting to take it. I mean, I would have been cool with Fern taking it too. That's something we talked about. But like, this has very much been Ashton's storyline. So I could, I don't fault him at all for wanting it. Especially because Ashley wasn't like die hard about it either. I think if she would have been like, oh, you know what, like, Taliesin, I really do want that, then I think he would have been cool with that. Because this is something they even talked about on the most recent episode of Four-Sided Dive. I don't know if you saw it or not.
No.
But they both Taliesin and Ashley were on the episode, and I don't want to like misquote it, so I'm not like saying verbatim, but the essential vibe was that Ashley didn't really want it. She wanted whatever Ashton wanted. So I think, I totally understand where Ashton's coming from. And then I totally understand where Matt came from. Because I feel like it's not as if he like sat down and said like, yo, Taliesin, like, don't do this. Because that's not what you're supposed to do as a DM. You're supposed to leave it, like, weave in a couple of like those warnings, which I think he did. And I think his like,
I disagree though. I think there's times you can be deliberate. I think pulling in Worlds Beyond Number when Suvi was going to kill the guard earlier in the story, and Brennan said, if you do this, it will forever change what happens to you. Like, you need to make a decision here. And not that Matt needs to do that also, but like, I feel like you can't on one hand be like, oh, I totally understand why Ashton did what he did, but then also be like, Matt should have been harsher on literal death rolls.
Well, like, let's not speak about like he should have been harsher. I'm just talking about what happened. Yeah. Like, I think Matt suitably set that up. The risk.
I would agree
risk. Because he said it as Yvonne Trevere and then again as Allura. There was another conversation about it. Yeah. So I just was saying that, like, as far as Matt goes, and like Matt was some level of like stressed and distraught. And I think that was just because like he felt his duty, like, to be true to the game, not to just like, okay, well, I'll make this a lot easier because I don't want to kill my player. Like that would have been lame if he had done that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I thought that like he was just like, man, like you did this, so like I'm just being true to like what was set up here.
I think that's maybe a healthy way to frame it. Is it's not Matt wasn't punishing Ashton,
right,
but
yeah.
I love how you said it. Like there was a suitable setting of risk of like, and Taliesin even said it, I think around like 5 or 6, like, I knew I was swinging big, I knew this was a big
Yeah.
decision. I will say, I don't know who said this originally, but the dice tell the story. I love how it played out.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely a high point for the campaign, a very gutsy, ballsy move. And I'm very curious what happens like power level wise. I
Yeah.
mean, Laura Bailey joked about it, like, oh, we got Ashton on the moon. Like, what else are we doing? Like, what else is everybody else doing? So,
Right. Yeah.
so
Like
I'm very curious how this gets settled power wise.
me too. I'm very interested to see like one vessel wasn't supposed to hold 2 shards, but here we are. Which that makes the payoff that much more worth it,
Yes.
since death was right there on the table. And shout out Abria for that ring. Like wouldn't
Yes.
have been possible without it. And shout out Chetney for not wanting it or wanting those
Yes.
boots or whatever that he wanted.
Yeah. and also he didn't even remember he had it till, what was it, like round 5?
Yeah.
Like around there. And then it got used like a round or 2 later.
Yeah.
I mean, and also Matt's description of him dying,
That was so
like
cool.
literally exploding and then coming back together, was also really cool.
Yeah. I can't wait to see some. Well, I guess we're going to get official new art, but I can't wait to just see some cool fan art of new Ashton as well.
I can't wait to see campaign 3 animated, dude. The whole time I was just like thinking about this scene and I was like, bro, please give me campaign 3 animated.
It's got, I mean, unless like, something crazy happens, I feel like it's an inevitability. But yeah, and another moment that just came back to me that was like so cool and tense in this whole thing was the health potion evaporating.
Yes.
That was
yes.
That was awesome. But yeah, okay. Kind of not moving away, but kind of segueing into a new element of this is, what does this look like now? And I kind of have 2 questions for you. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of boon associated with it. Unique entity in like the history of Exandria, really. So like clearly there's going to be some boons, but like this is an interesting challenge for Matt, because how do you like make that satisfying but also not make it like Ashton's effectively like 7 levels higher than everyone else,
I think you have to play it out as like an awakening process, like he's done with the vestiges and other like powerful items. Is like, hey, you've consumed this 1 shard. You've presumably awoken the dormant shard that was already in you, but you're gonna need to learn to harness this power a little bit. And I think sometimes when that happens, it gives the other players story reasons to also advance their characters. Otherwise, it is really, I mean, it's like having a freaking rogue in your D&D party. Is, one person does like 8 points of damage, and then the rogue does like 40 points, and you're like, all right, cool, yeah, and he's flanking him, right? So okay, you're like, yes. But all that to say, yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be some kind of level. There's some level of parity here. I would really want to see Ashton's character sheet after this. Like, I just want to know.
Yeah.
Because I also wonder. I wonder if Matt. I don't know if Matt actually said it. He said, "I didn't expect you to do this." So what Matt probably wrote out for this, the boons you're talking about, I think we all kind of thought it made the most sense on Fern. I do think he's going to rewrite that, rework that a little bit, where it does make sense. And maybe even like wherever the ceiling was for Fern, maybe it's even farther for Ashton, but he's going to have to work up to it, would be my guess.
Yeah. I think it'd be really cool to like have that opportunity too, as the DM, to like be like, ooh, now I can play with like this brand, maybe like not a brand new element obviously, but now like with earth and fire mixed together, like what does that create for Ashton? So I'm excited to see that. And I'm also wondering, again, clearly it's going to be a boon, but I'm also wondering if there will be any penalties kind of to represent the like chaos of housing two shards beyond just obviously the extremely crazy process of getting it to begin with, but like could there also be setbacks due to that as well? Not saying it would be like F.C.G's stress point system, but like something kind of like akin to that, where like, okay, you know, you all have this awesome stuff, but there's also this chaos happening inside of you, and this is the drawback of that. Or if it will just be good things.
I could see that for sure. And I think even like mastering those drawbacks is another like story reason for why. Because let's think about this objectively. You're taking the two strongest titans that had never been defeated by the gods, but instead had been imprisoned, and now you hold both shards of them. Like, yeah. I mean, there's a world out there where Ashton just immediately levels up to 20, and you know is jacked. You know,
totally. So, I was wondering if there was going to be an entire new like Ashton the Earth Genasi was going to be like Ashton the Lava Genasi now, and like that was going to be like not just the arm, which clearly we only got the arm, but I'm curious if it might spread or evolve as time goes on.
I wondered that too, if maybe like Ashton would explode at the end, even being successful, and there'd be like a fire elemental version of him.
Yeah,
you know, kind of like Keyleth in the animated Vox Machina.
Yeah,
when she becomes the whatever. That's kind of where I wondered. I was like, is this going to go there? But just so freaking cool, man. I want to see, like you said, the fan art with like the molten like slag arm.
Yeah,
is really cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I just can't wait to see this fan art and, like you said, animated, just of like him crumbling as the thing is going on.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, metal, man.
We knew it was bad when it was like round 3 and his arm fell off. You know, yeah. It was like,
it's like, oh,
yeah.
Yikes. Okay, so one other element regarding this whole situation that I did want to touch on is the whole Fern Ashton element. They were clearly flirty. I mean, there was even a kiss that was involved. I don't know how I'm parsing it fully. I do think there's like flirty feelings there, obviously, but on some level I'm wondering if it was also just not manipulation. Like, I don't want to go that far, so I don't really know exactly what I'm saying, but like Ashton kind of used Fern.
You think he was like kind of buttering her up to like support what he was wanting to do?
I'm trying to parse the line there of how much, because I think both things can be true.
True.
You know? Yeah. So I was just going to see how you parsed it.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way. I saw it like Taliesin really knowing his character could potentially, like, this could be his last episode with that character. And not only was he swinging for the fences in terms of like the risk of the decision, but it was like, yeah, I'm going all out. And, you know, and my Ashton's a sweetie pie, you know, always, first it was maybe Laudna, and, you know, whenever these, you know, sparks are flying a little bit. But I could see it that way. And I also wouldn't have a problem if that was what Ashton was, would have a problem. In general, I would have a problem with people doing that, but I would understand why Ashton took that route.
And for my money, even if that is the case, like, I don't think it was a purely like, you know, sociopathic manipulation. Right. I'm just saying that like there was an element of that. Yeah. But I do think there was genuine like flirtatious feelings. Like, I don't think it was, you know, I don't think he was Patrick Bates. Is it Patrick Bateman? Patrick Bates?
Patrick Bateman.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but I've always been more team Chet Fern. So maybe that's partially where I'm coming from with this too. But
true.
Yeah, I just didn't know what to make of it. And, you know, she was clearly mad, kicked him in the face at the end.
Yeah.
Understandably. So
I'm still team Ashton Laudna. Do we think, is that a possibility still? Or
maybe a thruple's on the table. But,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I kind of wonder, like, honestly, this was so peak Fern, like Chaos Demon. Mm-hmm. Like, you really never know what Fern is going to do.
True.
By the way, I forgot something in the recap. The Delilah talking to Fern. And the throwback to EXU.
Right.
So if you guys watch this episode and Delilah mentioned to Fern, like, hey, there's a darker version of you that you've seen it yourself. This is a callback to a really big moment in season 1 of EXU where Fern essentially, they're looking at a portal to the Feywild, but seemingly a different time. And she sees herself, but wearing a dark, presumably wearing the circlet of Barb Vision, but basically a dark version of herself. I love how Matt had a callback to that.
Yeah.
But I thought the shard maybe was going to be the mechanism for that. Now I'm wondering back to what is next for Fern. She didn't want the shard. Well, what is her pathway?
Yeah.
Is it Asmodeus? I don't know.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Because how did Delilah even know that?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But it was also, I guess I don't want to like fully move away from the whole ritual that we've been talking about unless we're ready to.
I think the last thing I'll say is I just really loved it. That's all
I'll me too.
It was
fantastic episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, calling back to the first half of the episode now with the whole Delilah thing. With one, just thought it was really interesting that we get some progress there with what's actually happening. They're tethered, which we basically knew.
Mm-hmm.
But now we got some insight on kind of Delilah's motivations, which is something we've been kind of speculating on the whole campaign of like, is she still tied to Vecna? Like, is she still like trying to do best by him, or is she kind of on her own now? Well, now we know that she is still tied to the Whispered One, and basically wants the gods to survive so that Vecna will survive. And basically says, and if they don't, Laudna's gone too, because Vecna's gone, I'm gone, which means Laudna's gone. And I'm wondering if that's true, or if that's manipulation to help get her way. But yeah, two, I'm just really interested to see like where this storyline goes, because it's something we've talked about, I think, recently too, about like when are they going to handle that with everything else that's going on. So yeah, I'm not really like leading to like a specific question to ask you or anything, but I just thought it was really interesting that that's becoming a greater and greater presence, even like literally even to where like the other characters can now hear her voice.
Yeah, and this has been a continual thread since episode maybe 2 or 3. I can't remember when it was, but Imogen and Laudna going to the I can't remember what it's called, the conservatory in Dressar.
Yeah, the Starlight something.
Yeah, part of it was to learn about Imogen, but they also wanted to know what was going on with Laudna, and eventually that conversation transitioned to is it, I think when she was actually going through the books, is there anything about separating a person from their patron? Was the deliberate conversation about it. So it's cool that this is still a continual thread and seemingly is going to play out in some way. I do wonder if it's going to be like you can substitute one patron for another, which is what I feel like what Matt was hinting at when Imogen heard the call of the Raven from the Matron of Ravens, was like, maybe there's a pathway there of, the god of, she's the god of death. Is that the Whispered One?
No, she's the god of death, essentially. I think there's like a few different like realms, but death essentially.
So it seemed like there might be a pathway there of, the matron to become her Raven, which is, we kind of thought maybe something was happening with the Sun Tree potentially,
right?
But she seemingly has moved away from that. We haven't seen that characterized as it did previously. But yeah, that was my interpretation of the Raven. I don't know, what were you thinking?
I mean, not that I wasn't thinking that. I guess hadn't gone that deep with it. What I took from that was that like, hey, Imogen, you knocked on Pelor's door, the Dawnfather's door. You should go knock on the matron's door. Meaning like that's who she should go ask for help. But I guess you could take that a step further, being that like, no, that's who Laudna should go look to. I think that's entirely possible. But yeah, that would be and I mean, clearly Matt did that for a reason. He's kind of scooting them that way, which I think is interesting given the whole everything else that's going on with the matron, with Vax and the visions they've been getting, but then
But
also the lewdness
yeah.
connection
I
with the
think
matron.
true. I think this kind of content needed to happen because even with the party being like, all right, we're Team God now, it's been so flimsy and flat and like, all right, fine. There needs to be a compelling reason to help the gods for it to really like truly make sense.
Mm,
And more importantly, for Imogen to choose Laudna over Liliana,
mm,
I think the gods is most quickly attached to Laudna. That gives her a compelling reason for whatever potential showdown could be happening down the road.
yeah.
So I loved it. And by the way, Laura Bailey's prayer to the Dawn Father was so that conversation, and then also her prayer there, and then her conversation with Laudna before the break. We had some very just gut wrenching moments this episode.
Yeah, so good. So yeah, I really liked giving Imogen like a front and center reason to truly care about the gods, like you said. Um, I'm kind of hoping for like a really, not like which button are you going to press moment necessarily, but like a really like gut wrenching decision if it comes down to it between kind of her mom or not, or Laudna, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
I think that'll be very interesting. So yeah, and like F.C.G kind of brought it up this episode, but really for the most part, everyone has a pretty compelling reason to be on the God side. You know, Chetney's his legacy, but you know, I think they do finally have a pretty cohesive reason. I'm no longer, except for in the hyper specific case of Imogen, if it comes down to like her mom's involved somehow, I don't really see anyone like really being turned to the other side at this point.
Mm-hmm.
With our current slate of information, if the information changes, maybe things change. But you know, because I don't know, that's been a big thing. We've been, I mean, I know I'm rambling now, but like Yvonne Trevere said, they're really being positioned uniquely to make that decision about
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, are the gods chill or not? So I don't know. Now I don't know. Like, is there going to be something else that kind of makes them waffle maybe a little bit? But
I think they waffled a lot, and it was kind of tiresome after a while of like,
true.
all right, this conversation
Let's talk
again.
about it again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm okay with like, all right, we've finally decided,
Yeah.
so I think it is. I don't think it still makes it any simpler. I mean, I think it's still when that decision happens, it'll still have like a level of complexity to it. But speaking of what the decision might look like, they're presumably heading to the Bloody Bridge very soon. I was a little apprehensive with how much loot they were being given. I was like, Matt's given them a lot of resources here. Like, are we about to head into something pretty scary?
Yeah. You're right. It was a lot, but on the same hand, it wasn't like a bunch of powerful magic items. It was like a bunch of one use,
Right.
like scrolls and potions and stuff. So,
Right.
um, I feel like that was kind of a good line, you know, because like you don't want to just give them a bunch of MacGuffins. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like I don't. Who knows how this is going to play out? Like we got the level of there's a distraction happening. So even if that goes flawlessly, that just gets them there. You know,
Right.
like who I feel like there's lots and lots of room for things to go poorly. And as they like kind of mapped out themselves, there is no, all right, let's get out of here. Things are going bad. They have to go back to the bloody bridge and come back down. And then they're in the middle of that camp. So even if they do that successfully, there's no guarantee that they'll be able to teleport out without a hitch.
Yeah.
You know, they then have to like get somewhere, or at least for however many, I don't know how long it takes to channel the staff, but
I have a hard time envisioning them coming back. And we've said this as much, not coming back as like they're going to die. They might, but we've said this a lot on the podcast that this Ruidus feels like the end game. Now, whether the end game's 10 episodes or 30 episodes, I am fully expecting them to be up there on a scouting mission that actually ends up being the end duration of the story. And it would also lend itself to why no one's coming to save them, because it's like, oh, they're on a scouting mission, they'll be back any day now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't know. What's your take?
I don't know, man. Because I mean, it's D&D. It could go any which way at the end of the day. Like, the dice tell the story. That clearly is going to have an impact as well. But like, I think I'm with you, like, narratively and generally, I'd agree that like it's not going to go smoothly up there, and that one thing's going to lead to the next and the next, and like you said, if it's 10 episodes or if it's 30, it does feel like that's kind of where stuff's going to happen. But like I said, it's D&D. Anything could happen. I could just as easily see it. There are reasons for coming back for whatever reason. Like maybe Ludinus isn't there right now. Like maybe he's, so there's infinite possibilities, but feelings wise, I agree with you. But I don't know where I'm like landing firmly as to if that's going to actually happen or not. Cause what is it? This was episode 7, blah, blah, blah. This was episode 77. We can't take anything for certain here, but it does feel like there's probably a good chunk left. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know if I necessarily see the next 50 episodes all being on Ruidus, as like if they go there next 2 episodes or whatever.
Sure.
So I don't know. This is not an answer. I've given you a complete non-answer, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's hard to know how much of the story is left to tell. I mean, if it is 50 episodes, yeah, that's a lot. So,
because they're level 14, right? Is that right?
Level 11.
Okay, that's right. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could do anything. They've said that this campaign would, kind of be different, and I think it already has been in a lot of ways. So it's not like as if I'm like expecting something to fulfill that promise, because I think we're there. But just because of that, I don't anything could happen. So yeah, in a perfect world, scouting mission goes great. I do think they come back, and then it's like recruit allies and I don't know, just get stronger. I don't know. Who knows?
I do feel like they're at the point now they could take on Autohan.
Yeah.
Like there's been some big swings in the last, 30 episodes. So
that definitely feels like the villain, at least at this stage. Like if this does go another 50 episodes, maybe they're more prepared to fight Ludinus. But like if it is anytime soon, Autohan definitely feels like the BBEG for them.
Yeah. Surely they're heading to eventually fighting Ludinus, right? But even then, I mean, again, we've talked power gap. That's been the name of the game for this campaign. But level 20 plus wizard or sorcerer, hundreds of years old. I'm very curious. It's like, how do you, even with them continually getting stronger, I'm like, but it does feel like any other final bad guy. I just have a hard time envisioning what that might be like.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, again, it's D&D, so like really anything could happen, but like maybe it's getting set up for like a Final Fantasy craziness, like where he does absorb Predathos and Ludinus becomes like this Omega god. And if in that case,
isn't he even stronger then?
Well, yeah, but like maybe like the divine gate is down, and so like maybe the other gods like help, and there's some sort of like crazy battle scenario thing that happens.
It's like the summoning system from
Final
Fantasy, like
so like maybe that kind of bridges the power gap, or I mean, who knows? Matt could handle it a number of ways, but maybe Vox Machina and Mighty Nine handle that, and Bell's Hells takes Odahan or something.
I think that'd be too dissatisfying. I mean, Odahan's a great villain for sure, but I would assume probably Liliana will be like the thing that I think them flipping Liliana is one potential, but then again, Liliana seems pretty resolute. So
yeah,
I think you're right that there will be something that kind of attempts to level the playing field a little bit. So
yeah, maybe it's Ashton with whatever's going on there now. So yeah, I think there's a lot of, it's just however Matt cooks it up, right? But I think I have faith that he'll do it in an interesting and satisfying way. But yeah, without knowing like really how much of this story is left, it's hard to kind of guess how this gets mapped out. But yeah, certainly if it is anytime soon, I don't know how they're doing it.
Yeah. Whew, man, this is getting a little too much for me. I'm just like thinking about them going to the bloody bridge now. I'm like, geez, man, like this is kind of wild. So, what else from the episode? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Let me look through the notes. We've talked about this before. It's not really like a big talking point or anything, but I definitely do feel like Laudna is Delilah's phylactery. I don't know if like that word would ever be like uttered, but like in terms of the mechanics of what's happening there. So I think that's a very interesting problem to solve, which we know Imogen is trying to solve it by talking to the gods, but I'm just really interested to see what's going on there, especially since, Vecna was like a lich. Then it kind of makes sense as to why she would know how to do that. And would also explain like why Laudna is uniquely the way she is.
When was it Delilah when she said that she was wanting to she mentioned her love. Is she wanting to bring back what's his face?
Silas.
Silas, yeah.
Yeah, probably. That's like her entire motivation and character arc through these things. So I'm sure I guess she's just still looking for a way to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's basically those two stressful events, which we talked about it, but it is kind of like Laudna does not seem well with how like much she is leaning into empowering Delilah and like embracing that. Like it's kind of messed up that like these ghosts, they were clearly tortured and abused by Delilah. Like she almost like reveled in the fact that like, well, I'm gonna become as Delilah as possible and really like stick it to you, like yes, they were attacking her, and I'm not saying they should have just like held hands and kumbaya'd, but like not a healthy thing to do, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a theme too, is like everyone's always seemingly on the brink of just like embracing their darker side. I am curious if anyone's going to be like, hey, Laudna, you should probably tone that down a little bit.
Maybe we shouldn't lean so far into it.
Delilah's like super evil. So,
I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, let us know what you guys thought about this episode. And of course, we'll have our watch party for the next episode this Thursday in the Discord. So feel free to join and enjoy that with us. We'll have a watch party on Sunday as well. And stay tuned, I guess. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. We appreciate you guys.
Alrighty, y'all.
See ya.
Till next time.